What is up, everyone? My name is Damien. Welcome to my channel. Alright, before we start, keep in mind this is my personal opinion based on over 200 hours of playing Naraka. Let's say 100 something, because I think a lot of the time I was AFK and just had the game on. Let's keep in mind that the better players can turn very bad weapons into god weapons. So in this game there are melee and range weapon, as you know. And some melee weapons being more ranged than anything else, but yeah, we'll get to there. So in this video, I'll only address the melee weapons, maybe excluding Blooper, because that weapon is just a meme weapon, and it's even though it's a fun weapon to use, I wouldn't say it's quite melee, as it is just a land mower going around and taking anyone that's on the way to it. I will start with one of the previously most hated weapons and recently nerfed, Dagger. This weapon is known for being kind of triggering. It's very easy to get lost on it when being attacked by it. It has a lot of mobility, therefore becomes harder to track. So here it goes. Alright guys, so I'm gonna start by the Dagger. The Dagger is one of the weapons I actually got recently nerfed, heavily nerfed. In a way it's a nerf, in a way it's actually just a change of playstyle. It had a lot more mobility than it has now, but it's still a decently good weapon. It is one of the weapons that has high mobility in a fight. Basically, this weapon enables you to chase your enemy very easily. So if, let's say, this Yoto over here is trying to run from me, I can very easily chase him by just doing the spamming the LMB, or yeah, the shift LMB on the Dagger. Even though, obviously, if you know how to time it, he's expecting it, you can dodge it. A lot of the times you'll be able to chase without them doing anything. One way to dodge it very easily is to jump, because basically the hit doesn't have a lot of vertical hitbox, so it is a good way to dodge a Dagger. Not only has high mobility, that means you can dodge, it also can chase very good. So it has high mobility to defend yourself and high mobility to engage on the enemy, which is something that you always want in a weapon. It has a very good aerial attack. The Dagger itself, as you can see here, they've buffed it on the last time when they nerfed it, the aerial attack. It has really good tracking. Normally, all the hits pretty much go on the enemy, which is something not all weapons do very easily. You don't have to turn on any lock-on, but I believe this is because the aim assist on Dagger seems to be a lot more aggressive than it is on other weapons, which makes it, in my opinion, it's very, very satisfying to see. But I don't know if I would like to see that on all the weapons. I prefer to turn on lock-on whenever I want to be sure that hits go in. Because, you know, it's better to have that choice than to just be removed completely. So it is a very good aerial to attack and a very good aerial to run as well. It might not be as long as Katana, but it's a pretty long aerial. One of the things that's the most powerful about Dagger, it has yellow status, like it has a yellow iframe per se. Basically what this does is it enables you to not get stunned. You'll still take damage, but you never get CC'd while doing this. This consumes quite a bit of stamina, but you just press shift right after pressing LMB or RMB on your mouse. This can be used to dodge, but this can also be followed up with a white attack or a blue attack. Blue attack obviously enables you to tank some white attacks. So in this case, you can just do this over and over again till your stamina goes out, which is actually, you can do it quite a bit of time. As you can see here, and I'll talk about it in cons in a bit, he was able to counter it because I was spamming it. You don't want to spam this. It also has a very good RMB with yellow status, where you just charge your RMB and it does that. Basically, if the blue part of the attack hits, you go straight into yellow, which means no one can get you out of this state right now. You can go also into dodge after that, but there is a slight point where people can CC you or stun you in between the dash and the stab on the ground. This is a very good attack that I think that was added to Dagger. It's very situational, but that's mostly what Dagger is, a very situational weapon. So, cons. As you saw, if I'm being very predictable, so if I'm spamming this over and over again, players will be able to counter me eventually. This is expected, okay? For new players, I would advise you to not do this over and over again. You try to read your opponent. You also can charge it up so it doesn't go straight into the same. You can like screw with the timing of your enemy by going in and just charging a bit longer. You don't even have to go to the uppercut that I just did, okay? So that would work in order to try to counteract this, but keep in mind that doing the same thing over and over again with any weapon in this game is very bad. You also lack some AoE. As you can see, it's very single target. If there's several players in the vicinity when you're hitting, you might still be able to hit them, but in general, this is a weapon to hunt down one guy and just pressure that guy over and over again. The auto-targeting on this weapon is really, really good, but it comes with a big con, which is if you try to shift away, so if you try to do your dash to shift away, and the enemy keeps chasing you, basically what happens is it just goes back to the enemy. So you want to be careful when spamming this, even if it's the LMB. Because if there's 2 or 3 guys chasing you, you don't want to go back in there, right? So you want to be careful when doing that. I would say those are pretty much kind of the pros and the fast pros and cons that I can think about Dagger. I would give the Dagger in a solo scenario, I would give it an A+, almost S, because it's a very, very good weapon on a 1v1 scenario. If you get really good at mixing it up, it's an insanely good solo weapon. In trios, I would give you a B, because there's other weapons that excel much better than the Dagger, but it's still a good weapon in trios, because if you want to focus someone down, you can, but if you have other people on you, it might become a bit harder to do that. So yeah, overall, I would give it an A. Alright, so next weapon is Spear. So this is a lot of people's favorites, especially people who have a high ping, since it has a really good stagger with a lot of the attacks. Alright, so Spear, pros of Spear. Spear has very good long range. You can see I can hit from very far. It has very good approach, but even without approaching, you can hit much further than a lot of the other weapons. It has a very, very good yellow attack that you can actually cast without even doing a counter, which most weapons require. Basically what you do is you want to blink on the second one, and when you blink, you press LMB or RMB, and this allows you to go into straight this yellow attack, which is called Neza. So you want to do Neza in order to try to sometimes peel yourself from other enemies, or just help your team. I will say right now that obviously this is very expected to do. It's a really good attack. Good mobility weapon in and out of fights. If you learn how to focus cancel like this, you'll see that you can easily run from teammates. The animation is very good to get out and get in. You can use it to get into a fight and just spam your enemy with white attacks, or charge a blue attack, or fake the blue attack by crouching and whatnot. It is a very, very heavy stagger. It's one of the heaviest staggers in the game. I will tell you that the only one that I would say surpasses this is the RMB on Longsword, but I'll talk about that later. There's no way anyone can get out of this right now. These 2 hits, these 2 follow-ups you see, like 1 and 2, they can only get out on the 3rd attack when you go to blue. So 1, 2, and then on the 3rd one you can get out. Normally. I believe that sometimes if you do RMB instead of LMB, sometimes even then it's very, very hard to get out. So in this case I'm going to do RMB so you guys can see. You can finish with RMB at least. So 1, 2, and then you do like this. It's a better follow-up, but it's still dodgeable. So regarding all the weapons, this is the weapon with the heaviest stagger on the white attacks. This weapon is one of those weapons that can shift the entire fight if you land a Neza, the yellow attack. Because this attack will CC anyone that comes close to you. So normally people do not attempt to go close to it. They will hit you from long range, or they'll wait for the attack to be over so they can capitalize on the fact that you have an animation afterwards, or that you're not in the yellow state anymore. So cons of the weapon. It's, as you see, it's a very straight line attack. It doesn't have much AoE to the sides. Obviously, because it has such a long range, the frontal AoE, it's pretty good. It hits very far away. Getting counter-wise, it's kind of hard because you don't want to, unless you're spamming Neza over and over again, people can see it coming and they can counter it very easily. In general, it's a really good one-on-one weapon, even though it lacks in AoE. I would say Dagger is still worse than Spear when it comes to AoE. The only thing I would have to say that's bad about it as well, it's the uppercut. It's one of the slowest uppercuts in the game, because you can see have quite an animation, but the range kind of makes up for it. It has a very, very good range vertically and horizontally. Like, it goes very far and it hits very high. All for all, I would say solo-wise, A+, very easily, and in trios I'll give it an A, so I'll give it an A as well, quite like a Dagger. They're both very situational weapons. I would say the spear is a lot more versatile, but yeah, it's overall a good weapon for both modes, I would say. Alright, so now we're gonna talk about Greatsword. This is a lot of people's favorites. It's definitely a good weapon. It is a very beginner-friendly weapon, I would say. But also it comes with its bad habits. Okay, I'm gonna try it with the pros. Good, very good pro on it. It's a very hooga boonga weapon. It's a weapon you can just get in and just smack people with it. It has an ability that's called Stone Form. Basically, Stone Form works the way that if someone hits you at the same time that you do, you trigger Stone Form. So, in this case, let me show you. 3, 2, 1, and go. Wait, go. 3, 2, 1, go. So, did you see this white thing you're seeing him do is what you call Stone Form. Stone Form is like a block mechanic, per se. Basically what it does is it takes in the hit that you're doing and it does more damage afterwards. So whenever you see that, you want to either counter or dodge. I prefer to dodge because the counter in this game is very dependent a lot of the times on the ping of the enemy and your ping. So to dodge sometimes is a lot better, but if you are actually able to counter that, you're about to change the fight very heavily. Because the counter from Greatsword hits like a truck, as every single hit from Greatsword does. But the counter especially hits very, very hard. It's about 60-70% of the enemy's HP. Stone Form makes it very, very dangerous when you get hit by it. So you want to be careful with it. It basically enables Greatsword to go from a state where it's doing a white attack, or it's supposed to do a white attack, to a very fast blue attack. Which basically you don't get staggered and you will be hit very, very hard. It can shift an entire fight by doing massive damage with or without Stone Form. You can just charge your RMB, you can charge your LMB, and all of it will hit very hard, especially because it has a very good area of attack. Overall, it's a good weapon in a team fight. If you're a good player or a new player, it's always good. The better you get at the game, the better the weapon gets. It's not a weapon that falls off just because it's noob friendly. It has okay mobility. If you learn how to play with it, I would say you can move as fast as with other weapons. So overall, it's really, really good weapon in a team fight, I would say. Another one more thing of the pros is that this weapon actually has a very good crouch LMB because it's a long range and people normally are not expecting you to do that. So when you do this, when you're engaging on someone, it actually might just be a very good start for a fight. So keep that in mind, or a good mix-up to do if someone is not expecting or expecting you to go straight into a focus attack instead. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's almost everything that the Greatsword has. The Stone Form is the main thing that the weapon has. It makes it very, very dangerous for anyone that fights it, especially if it's a good player that's used to mixing it up and bait you with going with the blue attack after Stone Form, or sometimes just canceling it and doing a normal attack instead. It's very hard to predict a lot of the times. So, cons of the weapon. Stone Form is something that is very predictable. If you're one of those players that is always spamming Stone Form, basically you will end up getting countered by it. So for example, let's go fast with 3, 2, 1.
It's just you and me, beer.
Okay, I fucked up. Jesus Christ. So, 3, 2, 1. So as you can see, he was expecting me to do the blue attack follow up after the Stone Form. And this is like how new players start to get to the point where they start to understand that, okay, that can be stopped, so I cannot spam that constantly. And I would advise you to learn how to cancel it and even counter it when you're against one like that. It is slightly slower than other weapons. You can see that the attack is a bit slower. It's slightly, but in a fight sometimes it makes a difference to be this slow. Normally you counter this slow just by being spamming, because it basically allows you to go into Stone Form, because Stone Form works the way that if you hit the attack at the same time the enemy does, and you keep spamming the LB, basically you go into Stone Form. So in a way, it kind of counteracts the going Oonga Boonga a lot of the time. So going normal, just spam your LMBs over and over again, white attacks. It is a good thing, but at the same time, it could be a bad thing because you get predictable and people can start to read you when you start to spam a lot of the same thing on Greatsword. It is a weapon that is the only weapon that goes into blue after the second attack, regardless of what if you use RMB or LMB. So that will also trip some players that are not used to it, because all the other weapons go into blue after the second hit, not the first hit. I would say the last thing I have to say about it is it has a very slow uppercut. Good range, but definitely slow, but it hits like a truck, like everything else on Greatsword does. So overall, I would give it in solo an A, and in trio an A. I think it's a very good weapon, but sometimes it requires a bit of practice to not just be a spammy Greatsword user. And but yeah, this is more from perspective of new players. I would give it an A overall. Yeah, it's an A weapon. So the next weapon is Katana. Katana is, it's one of my favorite weapons. I think it's a very versatile weapon because it can be very threatening and it can be very good defensively. So pros of the weapon: good mobility overall. If you master the blue attack focus, whatever you want to call it, canceling, it's actually a pretty good weapon because you can chase people very easily. Even though it doesn't look, it is very good in a team fight on how fast you can move with Katana. It has good AoE. Both focus attacks have a really good at AoE, the horizontal and vertical. So anyone that gets close to you will most likely get hit or be able to counter it, so you have to be careful with that part. It has obviously the Kirito factor, very much Kirito vibes, as you can see. It's overall a good defensive weapon, I would say, even at the level of Greatsword, because it's a weapon that you want to read your opponent pretty much. And it enables you to just get 2 or 3 enemies from the top of you sometimes, or enough time for you to stagger them so your team can come help you. Or even for you to run, you'll be able to like cast your ult, for example, as Tarka, and just run. It is I have to be honest, it is a very good weapon for Tarka, because it gives you a lot of mix-ups with Tarka because of his ult. Other weapons also enable you to do this, but this weapon for some reason feels much better to do that. The weapon can also deal very high damage, and it has good stagger on some of the white attacks if you can combo properly. So if you start like this, you can do like an area like this, and you normally will hit all 4 hits without a problem if you want to stagger someone. Cons of the weapon: lacks range. Clearly, it doesn't have much range. It definitely has the mobility. If you practice with the mobility, you can counteract the lack of range, but it's no spear. You know what I mean? It's no Greatsword, no spear. So you'll find out that sometimes you have quite a bit of low range on the Katana in certain situations. It can be very predictable with the focus. It doesn't have a very big toolkit on the focus attacks, so you'll find out that if you spam the focus too much, people will just counter you eventually. And you want to avoid that highly, because being countered with any weapon might just make you lose the game itself. Also, the ability has the tendency to last longer than it looks, so sometimes you'll get countered out of the animation of the ability. Overall, I'll give this weapon a. On solo, I would give it an A, and on trio, I'll give it an A as well. It's a pretty balanced A. Yes, so far you've seen, I'm giving every weapon an A. I'm sorry, I feel like that most of the weapons in this game are pretty balanced. So I just think that's why I divided it by trios and solos, because it just feels like some weapons excel a lot better in solos than trios, and some of them are good in solos and in trios at the same level, I would say. But our last weapon is the Longsword. There's a lot of opinions about this weapon, and this is obviously my opinion about this weapon. I believe that this weapon is really good. Overall, I'm just going to say this right now, so you're going to see a lot of pros and not many cons. Range, it has range blue attacks, so you can like do a blue attack, like a focus attack from very far away to enemies. It has really good area, so you can see that you can hit people with your horizontal attack instead of a vertical attack. But even a vertical attack, if they're really high up, it's still a good vertical hitbox. It's very noob friendly, for the simple fact that you're very far away from enemies. So enemies can't really do much about it. They can try to predict it, but a lot of the times it's very hard, because this weapon is just something else, because it's the only weapon that has this much range, and at the same time being very threatening up close as well. it's very spammy with little punish, so I can be very, very far away from the enemy. I can do this. As you can see, that was max range. It looked like it wasn't gonna hit. It still hits. But if the enemy counters me, which happens a lot, so I'm stunned, but I didn't lose my weapon, and now I can just move out. If the enemy doesn't engage immediately, he's kinda screwed. And a lot of the times you can't really engage. Not all weapons are made to engage from that far away. So, you know, Longsword basically becomes very, very strong when fighting mid-range to close range fights. So from this distance, normally, I'm always safe attacking the enemy. It is the go-to weapon for kiting enemies. Basically, you can just keep running. So if this yacht over here starts chasing me and I'm running, I can just keep baiting her and eventually do an attack, and then I keep running over and over again, which, you know, it's just ridiculous how good it is at running from people and turning around and hitting people. Basically, if you have 3 guys chasing you, those 3 guys will most likely, when they see you charge, they will try to counter immediately, because it's so threatening and that's the only thing you can do to it. And since counter is so unreliable, it just makes this weapon so much stronger. Obviously, due to this reason, it also has very good mobility, because if you're good at cancelling focus, you can see that you can move very fast with it, like every other weapon. Another thing that recently people have been doing a lot with this weapon, which in my opinion shouldn't even be a thing, is they spam R&B. But they only spam the first R&B attack, the white attack, and they dodge immediately, which if you time it correctly, which I can't do very well yet, you will CC people for a very long time just by doing this. And as you can see, my stamina does not go down that fast. So you end up killing people just by doing this. It has one of the if not the longest stagger in the game when it comes to normal attacks. If you thought spear was bad, then when you fight someone that actually plays like this with Longsword, you'll feel like throwing your PC through the window. I can assure you of that because I've been there. So cons of the weapon. Obviously, it gets very predictable in new players' hands. This weapon is highly predictable for new players because new players will attempt to do this over and over again, and eventually you will get countered. Obviously, the desync helps a lot, because basically a lot of the times you counter, but the count doesn't go in, and this weapon for some reason excels at desyncs, or excels at making the best out of desync. LMB blue attacks are also very bad in this weapon. It's a big con, so I normally do not do LMB attacks. I do it in very specific situations when there's like 3 people attacking a teammate of mine. I try to do this so I can hit as many guys as possible. Normally, I just do the RMB, which is the vertical attack. So for example here, if my teammate is on that hill, I will hit him with the horizontal attack. But if I'm on the hill, and my yacht over here just crouches in front of me, you'll see that I'm gonna miss. So with RMB, obviously it doesn't miss. So I would advise everyone to do RMB a lot more than LMB. This is a big con on this weapon. So when countered, one of the very big cons of counter, especially if you have a teammate that's playing Longsword and he's very spammy, is you will also hit your teammates if you get countered. So
I'd like to.
If our yacht over here can counter this eventually, that is, did you see that? 2 hits. That's a desync problem, I believe. That shouldn't happen, but currently it's happening a lot, and it's very, very annoying. Alright, so there was something that we noticed. The double hits that you get from Longsword, we're not sure if it's a bug or not, but basically it's dependent on how far away you are. So if you're pretty much max range, you don't get hit, but as you saw, he's close enough that it hits twice. But if we're far enough, we're in the edge of the weapon, basically it only hits once. That's too close, I think. Yeah. So yeah, which makes it like you're always gonna hit once. Yeah, as you can see, it only hit once there. So keep in mind this. I'm not sure if this is a bug, if it's a desync issue. I feel like it might be just a thing that it's supposed to exist. But yeah, I don't know, it's a bit busted because sometimes it can crit, which means I've seen it do 600. So if it does 2 600s, that's 1200 damage, which is like a headshot from a purple bow or something like that. which is pretty high for one single attack. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So let's see here, or Yoda can catch this. This wave that you just saw, that he countered, doesn't disarm me, but if your teammates are close to you, when that happens, it will hit everyone that is close to you. So be very careful when spamming that against other people and you have your team very close to you, because you might just end up losing the fight due to that. Overall, I'll give this weapon in trios and solos a S++++, which makes pretty much this weapon the sigma of all weapons in this game. I honestly think this weapon is by far the strongest weapon in the game. Obviously, it has to be in good hands of players sometimes, but it has so much going for it that overall, especially in new players' hands, it becomes a very, very strong weapon. And this is the reason that maybe in a lot of the games you might just see a full team just using longswords, because it's such a safe weapon at the same time as being such an aggressive and strong weapon. So overall, I would say that the weapons in this game are pretty well balanced. Some weapons are a bit more tuned up than other weapons, but yeah, I think the balancing is there. I think there obviously can always be more balancing. There's always the opportunity for that, and I'm pretty sure they're going to do that, as they've done in the past. I'm sure they'll do in the future. So if you guys want me to do more specific guides about each one of these weapons, like other combos or like situations on how to use certain weapons or something like that, do comment down below. I will definitely read it, and I'll definitely do it if you guys really want it. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I stream on Twitch about 3 times or 4 times a week. If you really want to know when I'm going live, I can either follow on Twitch, or you can just go to my Discord, get in my Discord, and I always announce it on Discord whenever I'm going live, and we can just have a chat, and you guys, maybe you can share your experience with it, your opinion, or even ask questions if you have any questions about it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye! So, regarding all the weapons, this is the weapon with the heavy...